He called it a minor oversight. That's how Greg, our beloved CEO with the emotional depth of a pothole, described the part where he credited the risk team for $12 million save I architected solo. I was standing 3 feet away from him during the all hands, nodding along like a trained seal while my stomach knotted under my blazer. Not even a glance in my direction. Not a name drop. Just our team did a great job mitigating exposure on the Helix deal. Our team, the only person from our team who did jack was me. The rest were in Aspen the week the deadline almost nuked our compliance status. And you know what I did after? Nothing. I smiled. I even clapped. Because that's what you do when you've worked 8 years at Altisphere Capital and you're a woman who speaks in complete sentences without apologizing. You become fluent in invisible. You get so used to being overlooked that silence becomes your default setting, until one day it doesn't. That day started as most did. I was in the office by 7:30, triple-checking the deck for our quarterly earnings prep. Greg waltzed in at 9:15 with a protein shake and the swagger of a man who thought Slack was a personality trait. I watched him delete 2 slides I spent all weekend refining. His reason? Too many words. Bored folks want vibes, not paragraphs, right? Because the board was allergic to literacy. If you've ever felt that twitch deep down like a spark behind your ribs that something inside you is done tolerating bullshit, then you'll understand what happened next. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I took my revised deck, closed my laptop, and said I had a dentist appointment. Greg waved me off with a half-hearted, cool, yeah, take care of those molars. Instead of the dentist, I drove to the edge of the city and parked outside an old coworking space I hadn't stepped foot in since the early pandemic days. The sign on the door still read Ember Works, even though the place had gone bankrupt in 2021. It's where I'd started sketching out something years ago, a rough framework, a shell company, an idea that used to feel laughable, but now it felt like prophecy. Look, if you've made it this far, you're clearly as allergic to corporate hypocrisy as I am. Do me a solid, hit the subscribe button, toss us a like. It keeps the stories coming, and trust me, the good part hasn't even started yet. Plus, my team gets weirdly emotional about those like buttons, motivates them more than catered lunch. Anyway, back then, I had called it Wavelength Capital. Just a placeholder, really. An LLC filed during one of those rare windows where hope hadn't been stamped out by quarterly reviews and Greg's smug one-liners. I remember laughing when the confirmation email came through. A phantom company for a phantom future. Cute, but now? I opened my encrypted email, searched for that LLC registration, and clicked download. Greg's voice echoed in my memory, him joking at last month's happy hour about phantom investors and Elena's ghost fund. Everyone laughed, of course. I even fake laughed too, because what else do you do when your CEO mocks you in front of colleagues over flat IPAs and undercooked sliders? You perform the expected reaction. You nod, you disappear, until you don't, until you sit in your car in a half-dead parking lot and realize you don't want a promotion anymore. You want distance. Control. Leverage. That was the moment it shifted. Not just the day. Me, back at the office. They were still passing around kudos for my work, except my name never came up. Someone even said, "Great job, risk team." In the hallway, I smiled because smiling's easier than correcting people who don't care to know. By 4 p.m., the junior analyst I'd mentored, Jason, posted a photo on LinkedIn, thrilled to step into the new strategy lead role. Humbled and grateful. That was the title I'd built the framework for. The one I'd spent 6 months defining. The one I was told didn't exist. And there he was, beaming in a blazer too big for his shoulders, soaking in the likes from board members who didn't know the difference. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I opened Slack, hovered over the congratulations thread, then closed it. Instead, I launched a secure browser, clicked into an old contact buried under my personal do not use unless set on fire folder, and typed, "Hi. We spoke once before about an alternative fund structure. I'm ready to talk, send." The bar was called Lantern and Ash, a place that desperately wanted to be both rustic and upscale and failed miserably at both. You know the kind: Edison bulbs, overpriced craft cocktails with names like Whiskey Business, and the scent of lemon-scented urinal cakes trying to mask the failure in the air. It was Friday. Leadership happy hour. Translation: pretend to enjoy lukewarm gin while your superiors test how far they can push humiliation disguised as banter. Greg, of course, was already 2 Negriness deep when I arrived. His tie was off. His shirt sleeves rolled up like he'd just emerged from a spreadsheet battlefield. Spoiler, he hadn't touched a spreadsheet in years. He leaned against the bar with his trademark smirk, holding court like the finance frat boy he refused to outgrow. Next to him stood Kyle, our CFO, nodding like one of those bobbleheads they give away at baseball games. I was only half listening until I heard my name. "Elena's got this wild idea," Greg said, "the kind of drawl people reserve for your drunk aunt's pyramid scheme pitch. She wants us to spin out a new division. Can you imagine?" He looked around, eyes twinkling with the glee of a man who's never built anything from scratch. "Swears she's got some shadow investor who'll back it." I told her unless your phantom fund knows how to pour a whiskey sour, maybe keep that one in the drafts folder. Laughter, a few fake gasps. Someone muttered, "Spooky season, Kim early." Greg grinned like he'd just invented comedy. I didn't react, not externally. I sipped my club soda with lime and nodded politely when someone made a ghost joke. But inside, my blood went cold. Not from embarrassment, please. I'd been through worse in my first year under his leadership. No, what hit me was clarity. They'd never take me seriously. I could outwork, outsmart, and outlast every overpaid oxygen thief in that bar, and still I'd be the punchline. The intense one, the woman with too many thoughts and not enough smiles. By the time I got home, my inbox had a new notification. Subject line, big moves, it was from Jason. The same Jason I'd mentored since he was an intern who thought EBITDA was a protein. I'd spent months building a strategic role I called innovation lead, modeled after venture incubator liaisons. I pitched it 3 times, each time told it's not the right moment. Suddenly, Jason had the job. Same title, same description, different owner. Attached was a selfie of him in the executive wing, holding a coffee with a caption that read, "Thanks to everyone who believed in me, let's make magic." I stared at it for a full minute, then I hit delete. The next thing I did wasn't dramatic. No rage, no revenge playlist. I just opened my secure browser and pulled up the contact list I hadn't touched since pre-COVID, scrolled past a dozen names until I stopped on one, Juno Ventrix Managing Director, Capital Operations. Juno and I had met once, back when Altisphere was circling a distressed asset and Juno's firm held a slice of the convertible debt. She was sharp, lethal even, the kind of woman who made grown men stutter and smiled like she already owned the building we were standing in. We'd hit it off briefly. I remember her telling me after we wrangled a deal closed over 3 frantic days, "You've got teeth. Most people in your seat just chew air." I never forgot that. I drafted a message. Subject, a conversation if you're still open. Body, "Hi Juno, not sure if you remember me, Elena Morgan, Altisphere. We worked together on the Accordia asset deal. I have a proposition I think might interest you. I'm exploring an independent vehicle. My pipeline's strong, I just need to light the fuse." Best, Elena, I didn't overthink it. I didn't workshop the phrasing. I hit send. Then I closed my laptop and stood in my tiny kitchen, staring out the window at the alley where our building's trash bins lined up like little green coffins. I realized I wasn't angry anymore, not even bitter. I felt blank, and that blankness, it was freedom. Because once you accept that the people in power will never give you the keys, you stop knocking. You start picking locks. The morning after I sent the message, I half expected regret to show up like an old friend. That weird hangover of what did I just do usually hits me after I challenge authority or send an email past midnight. But when I opened my inbox and saw Juno's reply, regret wasn't anywhere in the room. Instead, I felt something I hadn't in months. Heat, not warmth, heat, like the buzz in your chest when you realize you're about to do something irreversible. Her reply was short, sharp, and somehow still elegant. "Elena, of course, I remember. Let's talk. Tomorrow, 11 a.m., my office. Bring your war stories." I hadn't been called into a meeting that wasn't laced with thinly veiled condescension in years. I didn't even know what to wear. I defaulted to my old power uniform, navy blazer, black slacks, minimalist gold studs, and the only heels that didn't scream wedding guest. No Altisphere badge. No laptop with Greg's fingerprints on it. Just me, a portfolio folder, and a flash drive I hadn't touched since 2019. The cab dropped me in front of a brutalist building that looked like the Death Star got a tax break. Juno's office was on the 38th floor. No reception desk. Just a matte black door that opened when I knocked once. She didn't stand when I entered, she didn't need to. "Elena," she said with that knife-smooth voice. "Been a while. Sit." I sat. "Tell me what you want." No small talk, no cappuccino offers. Just 5 words that sliced through the years of doubt I'd let calcify around my ambitions. "I want out," I said, but not quietly and not empty-handed. Her eyebrow ticked upward. "You starting something? I've already started. I filed an LLC a few years back, Wavelength Capital. Built the bones of a spin-out structure. It's lean, targeted, and I've got access to deal flow Altisphere doesn't even know exists. Why me? Because you like velocity. And you fund risk." Juno smiled. "You're not risk, you're underpriced insurance." She asked a few more questions, not many. Then she stood, walked to her desk, and pulled a silver card from a drawer. "Here's what I can offer," she said, handing me the card. "Get me leverage, real leverage. I don't fund dreams, I fund detonators. You show me what makes Altisphere vulnerable, and I'll light your fuse." I nodded. I didn't need to be told twice. By the time I got home, the old war drum in my mind was pounding, and I knew exactly where to start. Over the years, I'd covered for more internal screw-ups than I could count. Quietly rerouted vendor invoices to fix cash flow gaps, smoothed over regulatory friction by massaging disclosures, even plugged a breach in our audit trail by manually correcting metadata on 10 years of archived expense reports. All uncredited, all buried, but not deleted. I opened my private data vault, a secure server I paid for myself. It had sat dormant under a random alias, protected by a 2-step authentication protocol no one at Altisphere knew existed. Inside, I found gold. One file in particular, borrowing Covenant Timeline Oakwell PDF, that one made my throat go dry. See, Altisphere's biggest strength, the thing that let Greg strut around like a Wall Street peacock. It's our revolving credit facility with Oakwell Financial. A $70 million line we could dip into whenever liquidity looked shaky. What Greg didn't know, or maybe just didn't bother reading, was that the covenant schedule on that facility included a quarterly performance test tied to named personnel. I was on that list. Remove me, the covenant triggers a review. Fail the review, Oakwell can freeze the facility or call it due. And Greg had no idea. That night, I started cataloging every file, every lapse, every procedural fudge I'd cleaned up for the company like a corporate janitor with a law degree. I wasn't just documenting negligence. I was tracing power, following it backward like breadcrumbs soaked in gasoline. By midnight, I had 5 folders labeled: legal loopholes, covenant exposures, compliance gaps, personnel dependencies, and altosphere lies, each one full, each one damning. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just kept digging. Not like a mole, like an archaeologist, uncovering the skeleton of the lie I'd been helping to prop up for 8 years. The only break I took was to update Wavelength's paperwork with the state. New IN, new operating agreement. I gave myself full executive authority. Nobody else, not this time. And as I clicked submit, I whispered, half a laugh, half a prayer, time to ghost the ghost hunters. Juno didn't waste time with flowery language. By noon the next day, she sent a message through her assistant. Investor committee wants teeth. Bring bite marks. She wasn't asking for pitch deck. She was asking for proof, real leverage, not whispers, not forecasts, pressure points that would make any risk officer's heart stop. I'd spent most of my career hiding the company's soft spots under glossy executive summaries. Now I was flipping the blueprint. I started where most auditors fear to tread, the internal ledger. Not the polished, buttoned-up version we sent to banks and regulatory bodies. The raw one. The one only a few of us could access, buried under 3 layers of VPN, firewalled so tightly even our CTO had to beg finance for clearance. I had that clearance. At first glance, nothing looked unusual. The revenue projections were on track. Burn rate was within the new acceptable range, assuming no black swan events. Buried in Q3's revolving credit utilization logs was something that made my fingers still. There was a timing discrepancy, subtle, almost elegant. The draw from Oakwell's facility had hit our accounts at 6:43 a.m. on the first day of Q3. According to policy, the covenant test for the quarter had to be certified by 6 o'clock a.m. Anything after that window made the draw conditional on faith, not fact. That 43-minute gap wasn't just a clerical error. It was an open wound. And I had the timestamp proof. Greg's assistant hadn't submitted the certification until 7:12 a.m., a full hour late. In legal terms, Altosphere had technically violated the conditions of their $70 million facility. Oakwell could recall the entire line with cause, no notice period, no negotiation. I stared at the blinking cursor on my notes app, heart thudding, not with fear, but clarity. I had my bite mark. Now came the delicate part. Juno needed a pitch, something she could take to her risk team that wouldn't just pass scrutiny, but invite appetite. A cleanly articulated case for funding Wavelength, my spin-out, as a parallel play with a built-in detonator for Altosphere. If they doubted my leverage, I'd make them fear it. If they questioned my plan, I'd make them regret not getting in earlier. I opened a blank slide deck and titled it, Wavelength Capital Phase 0 Strategy Slide 1, a visual breakdown of Altosphere's credit dependencies. Oakwell was circled in red. Slide 2, timeline of covenant tests with embedded metadata showing late submissions. Slide 3, internal documentation of covenant breach potential, annotated with references to Oakwell's standard recourse protocols. Slide 4, Wavelength's value proposition, targeted growth using a first-mover advantage in fintech verticals Altosphere had ignored. Slide 5, launch readiness, LLC registered, market mapped, key personnel, read, me in place. Slide 6, contingency, detailed roadmap for drop event should Altosphere retaliate. I didn't name Greg, I didn't need to. The implications were clear. By the time I was done, the pitch had teeth and claws. Juno could walk into any war room with it and emerge with the green light. But that night, after I zipped the file into an encrypted folder and scheduled the send, I sat in the dark longer than I expected. This wasn't a career pivot anymore. It was warfare. If I pulled this trigger, there was no going back. Greg wouldn't forgive. HR wouldn't forget. Oakwell wouldn't be gentle. And if I failed, even by an inch, I'd go from respected to radioactive in every firm across the East Coast. There was a moment, just a flash, where I hovered over the cancel send button. Then I remembered Greg at the bar. We don't take strategy advice from ghost hunters. And Jason, beaming in my job title. And the $12 million I saved them, erased like a typo in a footnote. My finger moved, click, the file uploaded. Then I messaged Juno, it's in your vault, the fuse is prepped. Her reply was almost immediate. About time someone lit a match. The next day, her office sent a calendar invite, preliminary term sheet discussion 9 a.m. Thursday. And just like that, the current started to shift. I wasn't just playing defense anymore. I was building my own battlefield. The invitation came from HR, but the tone was pure Greg. Subject line, quick career chat, just us. Nothing says ambush like a smiley face from a department that still uses clip art in their PowerPoints. I wasn't surprised. Word spreads fast in places like Altosphere, where loyalty is a weapon and ambition is a rumor until it's a threat. Juno hadn't even finished her committee review, but I could feel the shift already. Side glances in the elevator, messages left on read, whispers dying down when I entered rooms. Still, I played along. I accepted the meeting invite, showed up 5 minutes early, wore neutral colors and the faintest touch of makeup, the kind that says I care just enough not to be accused of looking tired. The conference room was cold. Not metaphorically, HR always keeps the thermostat at meat locker levels. Diane from People Ops was there with her laptop already open, fingers poised over the keyboard like she was about to transcribe a war crime. Greg came in late, of course, coffee in hand, all smug smirk and hey, Elena. I smiled. Greg, Diane, what's up? He got right to it. We've been hearing some chatter, nothing formal, just signals about you possibly exploring other options. Signals, pulse checks, pinged references, late nights with non-company laptops. He said it like a dad catching his daughter sneaking out in high heels. We figured it'd be good to align. Diane gave me the HR face, tight-lipped empathy wrapped around passive threat. We just want to ensure you're feeling supported, she said, clicking her pen once. You've been with us a long time. We want to protect your legacy. My legacy. That was rich, coming from the same man who credited a junior team with a $12M deal I negotiated in a sleepless 72-hour sprint. I appreciate that, I said flatly. But my work speaks for itself. Greg leaned back in his chair, leather creaking like it was trying to escape his body. You're a high-value asset, Elena. We'd hate to see you make rash moves. I nodded like I was absorbing wisdom, not a threat. Of course, I'll be thoughtful. They ended the meeting with some corporate fluff about evolving org structure and realignment opportunities. I nodded, stood, and walked out. No emotion, just calculation. Back at my desk, the trap started to close. Slowly, but intentionally. First, I was removed from the calendar invite for the Strat Ops deal call. No explanation, just disappeared. Then I noticed my permissions to the financials folder were downgraded. No edit access, view only. Classic ice out. Oldest trick in the boys' club playbook. The assumption, of course, is that fear will make you crawl back. Beg to be included again. They don't understand women like me. I didn't panic, I just adapted. I opened my private server and began duplicating every file I'd ever created for Altosphere that could legally be considered mine: original financial models, proprietary deal flows, white paper drafts, vendor contact trees. I routed it all into a secured vault hosted in an overseas cloud node with multi-key authentication. My syncing software was disabled. No more breadcrumbs, no more fingerprints. Every trace of my value was now under my control. Final move, I encrypted my company laptop's offline cache and scrubbed the local registry. Nothing illegal, just prudent. The kind of digital hygiene you practice when people start smiling too much in meetings you're not invited to. Around midnight, I received a message from an unfamiliar email domain. It was short, clean, no signature. Oakwell is ready when you are, that was it. The firm holding Altosphere's oxygen tank was waiting for my nod to cut the line. One file, one clause violation, and $70 million in revolving credit would vanish faster than Greg's sense of humor in a downturn. I stared at the message for a long time, not because I was unsure, because I wanted to remember what it felt like, this calm, controlled stillness before everything changed, before the smirks dropped, before the scramble began. They thought they were icing me out. They didn't realize I was just chilling the fuse. The term sheet sat in front of me like a loaded weapon, sleek, elegant, and humming with consequences. Juno's legal team didn't mess around. The language was razor-sharp, stitched with contingencies and carve-outs like a lawyer's lullaby. But at its core, it was simple: $100 million in seed funding. Fully committed. Tranche 1 available within 24 hours of my formal resignation from Altosphere Capital. The numbers weren't what made my hands shake as I scrolled through the final pages. It was Clause 7.3, tucked in neatly between non-competes and vesting schedules. Founding trigger shall coincide with a publicly verifiable demonstration of leverage over origin firm. Minimum audience, board level. I read it 3 times. They wanted a show. I wasn't surprised. Juno hadn't built her reputation on stealth. She built it on spectacle. Her message was clear: we're not tiptoeing out the back door. We're detonating the front lobby and you're holding the match. I signed. The moment the ink dried, I closed the doc, sent it back with a single line, "Let's begin," and stared at my own reflection in the darkened laptop screen. It didn't look like victory. It looked like fear in a pressed shirt. The next morning, I requested my quarterly update slot at the board meeting. Nothing unusual about it. I was technically still VP of Strategic Development after all. The admin slotted me in with zero resistance. Greg even commented in Slack, "Looking forward to hearing your thoughts, E." The casual tone was almost funny, like a man texting from the driver's seat of a car that's already on fire. I spent the next few days fine-tuning what would become the last deck I'd ever make for Altosphere. But not in the way they expected. It wasn't filled with projections and trailing EBITDA comparisons. No synergies, no bar charts, just a sequence of elegant, brutal truths. Slide 1, a screenshot of Altisphere's covenant language with Oakwell highlighted. Slide 2, the 6:43 a.m. draw timestamp, compared with the 7:12 a.m. covenant certification. Slide 3, Oakwell's standard clause for breach and the trigger language for a recall. Slide 4, wavelength capital. Mission structure. Launch readiness, fully funded pending one condition. I uploaded the presentation to a private link and encrypted it with a time-locked key. Then I sent Oakwell the access with a message, "You'll want to be on this call." 11:30 a.m. EST. I go on at 11:37. Their reply was one sentence, "We'll be watching." Night before the meeting, I didn't sleep. I tried. I poured myself a glass of wine, opened a novel, scrolled through old photos from my first year at the firm, me at 29, still thinking hard work and clean data would earn me a seat. Still believing there was a meritocracy buried under the boys' club furniture. I set an alarm, even though I knew I wouldn't need it. The morning was silent. I dressed slowly. Crisp charcoal blazer. No jewelry. Hair down. Neat, I looked like the woman they thought they hired, and nothing like the one who was about to end their fiscal quarter with a crater. At 10:58, I joined the video call. Standard Zoom setup. Board members filing in from their overpriced home offices. Greg in a navy suit that looked just a little too new. He gave me a nod. "Elena, you're up after finance. Let's keep it tight today, we're packed." "Of course," I said. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't move. But inside, everything pulsed like I'd swallowed a live wire. When finance wrapped, Greg gestured to me like a game show host teeing up a contestant. "Elena, show us what your crystal ball says." I smiled faintly. "No crystal ball today," I said, "just some transparency." And then at 11:37 exactly, I accepted the incoming call. The screen split, and the face of Oakwell Financial's executive director filled the frame. Calm, impeccably dressed, voice like the undertaker of liquidity. "Good morning," he said. "We're funding her new venture for $100 million, and as of this moment, we're calling your outstanding credit note in full." No one spoke. No one blinked. I didn't have to add a word. The match was already lit. The night before it all went down, the city outside my window felt too loud, car alarms, muffled bass from someone's rooftop party, a drunk couple arguing over fries on the sidewalk below, and yet inside my apartment it was cathedral quiet. The kind of silence that wraps around you when something irreversible is about to happen. My laptop sat open on the kitchen table. No music, no distractions, just the glowing cursor on a two-page document titled, Board Meeting Script EM. It wasn't long. I didn't need many words, just enough to frame the silence that would follow. Page 1 was for optics. Quick overview of Strategic Outlook 2025, a few safe metrics, a chart that didn't mean anything but looked impressive to people who measured value in vertical bars. Page 2 held the shift, a single sentence. "Let's take this call together, might clarify some of the numbers." That's it, nothing dramatic, just a handoff. A handoff to Oakwell with the fuse already sparking. I ran through it twice. Not to memorize, was already burned into my brain, but to practice tone. Controlled, clean, no sharp edges, like I was presenting quarterly snack budget options, not triggering the corporate equivalent of cardiac arrest. I closed the file, encrypted it, and sent a copy to my personal attorney with the subject line, contingency. The attachment wasn't just the script. It included a timeline, call logs, and a signed affidavit outlining the covenant discrepancies. If anything went sideways, if Oakwell blinked, if Greg tried to bury me under some retaliatory legal stunt, I wanted the paper trail to be airtight and pre-lit. My phone buzzed at 9:41 p.m. "Juno, call confirmed. Oakwell will dial in at 37-min mark. Timing is key. Don't deviate." "Me, understood. Line will be open." "Juno, after that, you don't owe anyone in that room another word." I stared at that last message for a long time, and I muted my phone, stood up, and walked to the window. Down below, a food delivery guy was circling the building, yelling into his phone. Someone's dog was barking at nothing. My neighbors across the street had their TV volume cranked up so loud I could hear the canned laughter from a sitcom that died in 2007. It struck me in that moment how absurdly ordinary the world remained while mine teetered on the edge. I went back to the table, sat down, and closed my eyes, not to rest, to breathe. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth, again. My therapist once told me that calm isn't the absence of fear, it's the command over it. And this moment, this was command, steely quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before the string is pulled and the whole circus tent collapses. No champagne, no gloating playlist, just me, a script, and a 37-minute countdown. I double-checked the Zoom link, made sure my name was still on the board meeting docket, and unplugged the blinking Alexa that had been mocking me all week with weather updates I didn't ask for. Then I folded the blazer I'd wear in the morning over the back of the chair, powered down my screen, and walked toward the bedroom, where I wouldn't sleep, not really. Not because of nerves, not because of guilt, but because when you're holding dynamite and the timer's already ticking, you don't blink. You watch, you breathe, you wait for the silence to end. The boardroom at Altisphere was always kept a few degrees colder than comfortable, like Greg thought mild hypothermia, gave us a competitive edge. Long obsidian table, 10 ergonomic chairs that cost more than most employees' monthly rent, and a panoramic view of downtown that made everyone feel taller than they really were. They'd scheduled the quarterly update early, 8:30 sharp, probably to make themselves feel like decision makers who seized the day. I arrived 10 minutes before, laptop in hand, expression neutral. Not cheerful, not strained, just centered, focused, like I was preparing to deliver numbers, not a funeral. The board members trickled in, all variations of graying finance archetypes. The former VC turned governance advisor, the ex-COO who now sat on 6 boards like it was a hobby, and of course, Greg, king of the table, with his signature smirk and a fresh haircut he probably expense-coded as client-facing readiness. Elena, he greeted, gesturing at the head of the table like I should be flattered. Looking forward to hearing about your side project. Side project, I smiled faintly. Appreciate the time. As they settled in, Greg leaned back in his chair, arms crossed like he was about to grade a school presentation. We hear there's a phantom investor backing your little hobby, he said, voice soaked in mock sincerity. You gonna tell us who's behind the curtain, or is this one of those believe in yourself startups? A few polite chuckles. The kind boardrooms manufacture to keep power comfortably seated. I clicked to open my screen share. The first slide glowed on the wall behind me, Altisphere's strategic outlook. Harmless. Expected. I didn't respond to Greg right away. I let the room breathe, let the awkward silence grow long enough for someone to shift in their chair. Then I looked up, just once. Let's find out, I said. At exactly 8:37 a.m., the incoming call icon popped into the corner of the screen. I accepted it without hesitation. The Zoom window expanded, and there he was. Anthony Voss, executive director at Oakwell Financial, the man who controlled Altisphere's oxygen tank. Impeccable suit, ice blue tie, expression carved from marble. Good morning, he said smoothly. No preamble, no corporate dance. We're funding her new venture for $100 million, effective immediately. Silence. Then, and as of now, we're calling your outstanding credit note, in full. The words landed like a dropped piano. Greg's smile didn't fall, it shattered. It tried to hold like a glitching face in a frozen video call. One of the board members, Marcia, blinked like she'd just been slapped. Wait, what? Someone said. Could have been Kyle. Could have been a ghost. Anthony didn't flinch. Check your inboxes. The notice has been issued. Legal documentation attached. No one moved. No one even breathed. I turned off the screen share, closed my laptop, slid it gently into my bag. Greg opened his mouth, but no words came out, just a sharp exhale, like the first breath after being punched in the ribs. Elena, he finally managed, voice hoarse. What the hell is this? I looked at him for a full beat, then smiled, small and unbothered. I believe that concludes my update. And with that I stood. No drama, no mic drop. Just footsteps on polished tile as I walked out the door, past the frosted glass wall where Altisphere's logo hung like a bad decision. Behind me, the room erupted into motion, papers shuffling, chairs scraping, someone dialing a number with shaking fingers. But I didn't look back, because I already knew. Are some silences louder than applause? Greg's voice was the first to crack. We'll fix this, he muttered, like repeating it might summon reality back into compliance. His words weren't a command anymore, they were an incantation. A prayer. A desperate gasp from a man watching the scaffolding of his empire groan under weight he never imagined could be shifted. Across the table, Altisphere's CFO looked like someone had just told him his house was on fire. Is this a joke? He snapped at the screen. Anthony Voss from Oakwell didn't blink. Check your inbox. Chairs scraped against the floor as board members fumbled for phones, tablets, reading glasses. You could feel the panic mutate, first into confusion, then disbelief, then something heavier, recognition. The kind that sinks fast. I didn't stay to watch the meltdown. I'd packed light, just my laptop charger, one manila folder for show. No goodbyes, no lingering glances, just the quiet zip of my bag closing as the old world folded behind me. I walked out the way I'd come in, head high, heels even, door clicking shut with the kind of finality no severance package could rival. Downstairs, the city didn't care. The traffic still screamed, someone was yelling into a phone about sushi orders, and a construction worker asked if I wanted coffee with a wink and no context. It was all so normal it almost felt surreal. World kept turning. Inside, I was rewired. By noon, the press had it. Bloomberg headline, former Altisphere VP secures $100M for fintech venture. Oakwell pulls credit line amidst shakeup. It spread fast. Forbes reposted. FinWatch picked it up with the snarky subheading, looks like someone should have taken her pitch more seriously. The reaction was predictable. Some ex-colleagues tried to DM me with so proud of you, and let's grab coffee, as if they hadn't been ghosting me for 6 months. I didn't reply. Instead, I posted one thing. A photo, my new office, still under construction, concrete floors, exposed ductwork, a single chair facing a window with a view of the city that wasn't pretty but was mine. Natural light spilled across the desk like a quiet apology from the universe. The caption, real ghosts don't haunt, they build elsewhere. No hashtags, no tags, no need. I turned off notifications and walked into my next meeting, this time as CEO, not support. And in that moment, I realized they'd never seen me as dangerous because I didn't growl, didn't bare teeth, didn't bark for scraps at the table. They forgot what silence could hold. But now they knew, because the game they rigged, I didn't just win it. I set it on fire and built my own from the ashes. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.